It's Jason Abraham, the Shadow Teacher, and today I want to talk about Rudolph Steiner's prophecy of the eighth sphere and what that might actually look like. So I've done some videos before on the works of Rudolph Steiner, and Rudolph Steiner was an Austrian mystic Christian. His spirituality that he started was anthroposophy, but he was initiated by a Rosicrucian and was part of the Theosophical Society before doing his own thing. And the eighth sphere, again, this is a planet of harvested human souls. Human souls power this planet, and it is a planet controlled by Lucifer and Ahriman, the two demonic entities that oppose Christ from Steiner's spirituality. And when we see movies, it's always interesting how a theme in a movie is very real, but how it's portrayed, the images and how it's portrayed in the movie, and then how it actually comes to be in reality. Sometimes it can be dead on. I think about the Star Wars movies in the late 70s, early 80s, where you see people talking into comm links, and here we have cell phones and people talking, being able to talk on screens, and now we have FaceTime and Zoom, which is just pretty much dead on what you saw in Star Wars back then, but at that time it seemed like fantasy. So a movie that pretty much dead on tells a story of the eighth sphere is The Matrix. Because in The Matrix we have what's displayed as the world that humanity lives in. You have the real world that humanity lives in that's completely controlled by machines, and humans are in these pods. They're basically batteries that power the Matrix, and they're basically asleep. They're completely asleep in the world of the Matrix, which is this VR, this virtual world, this fantasy world. And that's the Luciferian side, a world of escapism that's complete fantasy, that's devoid of actual existence. And then Ahriman, which is this scientific, mechanical, reductionist world. And in the eighth sphere, the connection with Source, the connection with the one creator, with God, is completely extinguished. Humans have no connection to that at all. And that is the Christ spirit. That is where Christ comes in to stand in between Lucifer and Ahriman and stand as that pillar for humanity to connect with the one. And again, that world, and here we have, in that world you have the Christ figure of Neo, who remembers, who is taken under by Morpheus, but eventually remembers through the guidance of Morpheus, and then through his own trials, remembers that he is the one who can transcend the Matrix and lead humanity back to their true calling. And another portrayal of the eighth sphere I look at in books. I look at in Aldous Huxley's Brave New World as one variation of the eighth sphere, and then George Orwell's 1984. Those are also similar themes of the eighth sphere, where humanity, you have the two elements of reductionism and then escapism, but humanity has no sovereignty in either of those stories. And Orwell based 1984 off of his experience in communism, a real life. It's basically a true story that has fictional characters. And the book is about global communism, a global world that is under totalitarian rule. And I say, what do we have today? What are some of the agendas that are in play? Some of the practical things I think about with the eighth sphere, for that to be, is this idea of escapism, where people are no longer connected to true meaning in their lives, and they escape through entertainment, through vicarious living, through celebrities, and they have no co-creation of anything that's original, where spirit can work through them. They're just outsourcing that and living through mediated entertainment and mediated communication. It's a world, I see the eighth sphere in a world where we have groupthink and we have censorship of individual thought. Where in a world of truth, truth doesn't fear an opposing view. Truth can stand on its own and doesn't fear falsehood existing or coexisting in a world. As truth, again, when you have something true, it does not fear a point of reference. But in the eighth sphere, where you have one thought, only one way, which is not the thought of a human being, human thought and human curiosity must be extinguished. Human creativity, human expression must be extinguished. And this is where censorship comes in, where you have a narrative that is pushed by mediated powers, and any other narrative that challenges that is extinguished altogether. And we're having that right now. We're seeing that. And then the result is groupthink. People who believe something because they're told it's true, not because it actually is. It's simply something they accept as true. And then we can also have something that where that belief takes a life of its own. It becomes an egregore. I'll do a video on what an egregore is, but it's basically an entity that has a life of its own that is not innately real, but is brought to life by, it's a thought form. So this is the world that I can see the eighth sphere shaping up to look like. And then shaping into being a more literal world like the Matrix, like what you see through this nudging of groupthink, censorship, and escapism. And ultimately the loss of creativity, the loss of agency, the loss of sovereignty, the loss of connection with higher spirit, and the loss of expression of the human spirit. That being said, I'll go more into this topic. I want to go into Christ consciousness as well, and the prophecies of a second coming of Christ and what that might look like. But today it's the eighth sphere, and something to think about, meditate, share your thoughts on. I encourage original human thought, even if you disagree with what I say. Be well, my friends.